alive?
Yes, sir.
Where's she going? Track her.
Ring Petroleum, security.
Your left behind you.
Lost the visual on her.
Evelyn, is Mike there?
Stairwell.
We got her.
Door about 2 feet. We're gonna gas her.
Go. Stay with her. She's crossing the street.
I'll tell you when to stop.
Two years before the day her entire life falls apart, Evelyn Salt hangs from the ceiling of a cold North Korean detention cell, her body bruised and her voice hoarse from days of insisting she is not who they believe her to be. To the soldiers around her, she is a CIA operative sent to sabotage their nuclear ambitions. And no matter how many times she gasps out the truth, "I'm really not who you think I am," the beatings continue. When the Democratic People's Republic finally releases her in a prisoner exchange, her colleague and closest friend at the CIA, Ted Winter, walks in to bring her home. He tells her something she will carry for the rest of her life. It was Mike, the arachnologist she has quietly been seeing, who fought a government to save her, petitioning the Senate and the State Department until the CIA had no choice but to act.
He did.
2 years later, in Washington, D.C., Evelyn Salt is a wife. She celebrates a quiet anniversary with the same man who once pulled every string in the Capitol to pull her out of that hole, a gentle scientist whose home office is full of the spiders he studies for a living. They kiss over breakfast. They tease each other about the bugs on the table. It is the kind of morning stolen from a life she was never supposed to be allowed to have. She has no idea this is the last peaceful morning she will ever know. At CIA headquarters, Ted brushes aside a new target file because it is her anniversary. Moments later, Officer Sean hurries in with the news that cannot wait. An FSB defector has walked in off the street and refuses to speak with anyone but a senior agent. Ted asks Salt to run the interview. She is, after all, the best in the room.
We gotta walk him.
Guess he's not buying our cover.
Says he's FSB, but won't give us any more.
How's his English?
Passable, not great.
We're crashing the party.
In the secure briefing area, all devices are locked away, and Officer Daryl Peabody from Counterintelligence watches through the glass. The defector introduces himself as Oleg Vasilovich Orlov, a former Russian spy dying of cancer, a man who claims he has nothing left to fear because Russia itself is dying. He tells her a story that reaches back into the Cold War, a Soviet Olympic wrestler and a female chess grandmaster whose child was said to have died in a hospital, but who was in truth stolen away by a spy master building the ultimate weapon against America. At an abandoned monastery, that child and dozens like it were taught English before Russian, drilled through years of psychological and physical conditioning, and slipped one by one into the West as sleeper agents. Their code name was KA. Their day would be called Day X. Then, Orlov drops the bomb that changes everything. KA-12, he tells the room, is here in this room. Her name is Evelyn Salt. The polygraph on the other side of the glass confirms he is telling the truth. What is a woman supposed to do when the walls of her own life become the cage of a story she never wrote?
You're good. But I'm officially off duty, so... Tell the rest of your little story to one of my colleagues.
Salt insists she needs to reach Mike. Peabody insists on a neuroscan first. Ted, torn between his friend and his duty, buys her a moment to make the call, but her husband does not pick up. As Ted argues with Peabody in the hallway, Orlov strikes. A retractable knife slides from his shoe, the guards escorting him drop, and the old man vanishes into the elevator shaft as alarms begin to scream through the building.
No sign of him so far on the street.
Just got a match, sir. There's Brezhnev, and there.
Used to be a heavyweight once upon a time.
Salt does not wait to be arrested. In the second interrogation room, she covers the cameras with a fire extinguisher and her own underwear, dismantles the table legs, and builds a homemade weapon out of the pieces. When Ted calls to tell her the tactical team will breach in 30 seconds, she asks him only one thing: call her when he finds Mike. Then she fires the makeshift device, blows out a window, and disappears into the streets of Washington barefoot and running.
What the hell are you doing there?
Hour ago.
Salt's apartment is 20 minutes from here.
She hails a cab. She rips her SIM card in half. She arrives home to a silent apartment where her husband no longer waits. Their dog leads her to Mike's overturned chair, and in that moment, she understands he has been taken. Between the wall and the AC unit, she hides as Peabody's men rip her home apart, and only when the coast is clear does she slip through her neighbor's window into a new disguise. Out on the street, Ted spots her. The chase that follows sends her leaping from moving truck to moving truck across a highway, catching herself with a single hand as bullets crack the air around her, until she vanishes into traffic on a stolen motorcycle. In the car behind, Peabody tells Ted what Ted cannot bring himself to believe she is a mole, and every word she has ever spoken has been a lie designed to protect her cover. He does not yet know how much of the lie was hers, and how much of it was told for her. At a hotel in New York, Salt lays out cash and weapons across a bed and pulls the fake teeth and colored contacts out of her mouth and eyes. She draws venom from one of Mike's spiders into a syringe. She studies maps of the tunnels that run beneath St. Bartholomew's Church, where the Russian president will attend the American vice president's funeral in the morning. She dyes her hair black. She remembers the day she took the CIA oath, hand raised, voice steady. "So help me God." The next morning, a public parade fills the streets in the vice president's honor. Ted and Peabody take positions in the church balcony as the American president begins his speech. Beneath their feet, Salt is already moving through crypts and tunnels, taking down every guard she meets. She fights Peabody in a corridor, kicks his gun from his hand, and slips past him before he can hold her. Then she detonates the charges she has placed in the walls of the church itself. The podium collapses. The Russian president falls into the hole where Salt is already waiting. She draws her weapon. She shoots him. Peabody arrives seconds later to find the body, and outside the church he tells Ted that Ted was right about her all along. But something nags at him. She had every chance to kill him in that corridor, and she did not take it. She is put in a police convoy, cuffed and beaten, watching the memory of a Russian teacher who once called her by another name, Natasha. "My name, Evelyn Salt," the child had answered back. Inside the moving car, she tases the driver, kicks the officers out of the back, steers the vehicle with a man's head, and drives the convoy into a pileup that ends when her cruiser flips off an overpass into a taxi below. She uncuffs herself in the wreckage and disappears into the crowd before the sirens arrive. News breaks across the world. Riots erupt outside American embassies. The new Russian president condemns the assassination and vows revenge. Diplomatic cars burn in Moscow. In a Washington Situation Room, an emergency meeting begins. The plan Orlov called Day X is no longer theory.
When I saw you in Washington, I almost ran to you.
Greatest creation.
You trained me well.
Meanwhile, on a boat in New York, Salt finds Orlov waiting for her. He greets her by her old name Chenkov and calls her his greatest creation. He is proud she has come home. Then he takes her to a warehouse full of men she recognizes from the monastery of her childhood. Men who cheer when she walks through the door, and he leads her to the edge of a concrete pit. At the bottom of that pit, chained and gagged, is Mike. She asks Orlov for the gun. He refuses. He tells her that would be too easy. He signals his men to open the valves, and the water begins to rise. She holds her husband's eyes as it climbs to his chest, to his neck, to his mouth. She fights every muscle in her face to give Orlov nothing. She watches Mike drown for the sin of loving her. Some men mistake silence for surrender. Orlov does. It is the last mistake he will ever make. Alone in a back room with a map and 2 glasses of vodka, Salt smashes the bottle across his head and drives the broken edge into his throat until he is finished. She arms herself, walks out with grenades, and turns the warehouse into a crater around the men who cheered her return. Then she stands at the edge of Mike's grave and lets herself see their wedding day one last time before she moves on. Following Orlov's directions, she reaches an airfield where she meets Schneider, a boy from her monastery childhood who has spent the last 3 years living inside the White House itself under the name Colonel Edward Thomas, NATO's liaison to the President of the United States. He shows her the maps of the bunker beneath the West Wing. He hands her a naval officer's uniform. He tells her quietly that her assignment is to eliminate the American president.
Tonight you will kill America's president.
Inside the White House that night, Ted Winter briefs the officials on what the CIA has just learned. SALT, he tells them, is a Soviet plant positioned decades ago in preparation for a coordinated strike the KGB called Day X. And then the American president walks into the room. Schneider murmurs one last thing to SALT as they stand at attention that he is going home, and the moment the president arrives, he steals a Secret Service pistol and opens fire. He is cut down where he stands, but not before he triggers a bomb.
Are you okay, sir?
Yes. You saw who?
So,
In the chaos, Salt races up staircases and shreds her disguise as the president is rushed toward the elevator that leads to the safe room. She jumps down the elevator shaft ledge by ledge. She drops on guards from above. By the time the president's team seals the bunker door, she is on the other side of it with them. Inside the safe room, Ted announces to the room that Day X has begun. Russian missiles are moving into position. The nuclear football is unlocked. And then, without warning, Ted Winter draws a gun from a Secret Service agent, kills every man in the room except the president, and introduces himself by another name, Nikolai Tarkovsky. He was a class ahead of her at the monastery. He has come to launch nuclear strikes on Tehran and Mecca, to kill 9 million people in a heartbeat, and to enrage 1 billion Muslims into finishing what Russia began. He shoots the president for refusing the codes. He begins the launch sequence. When Salt calls out to him from the doorway, he congratulates her in Russian for making it this far and tells her he has always been the loneliest of them all. He tells her he intends to be the hero, the man who stopped the treacherous Evelyn Salt while a mushroom cloud rose over the Middle East. And I'm the hero.
Пусти меня.
You know, when you first came to Langley, I didn't think I'd be able to do it. Didn't think I'd be able to resist the temptation to say something. You met Mike and...
Пусти меня.
A television flashes in the corner of the room. The Russian president is alive. The bullets Salt fired at the funeral were laced with the venom drawn from her husband's spiders, a paralytic dressed up as an assassination. Ted realizes what she has done, and he understands too late whose side she has been on the whole time.
I'm the patsy.
And I'm the hero. Congratulations, Ev. You're about to become famous.
She empties her weapon into the bulletproof glass between them. She overrides the door. She bursts into the launch room, and the two of them tear each other apart in a fight that ends with her blade in his shoulder and her hand slamming the abort key 1 second before the missiles fly. She is shot in the back at the moment the sequence dies.
Systems restored.
She is dragged out in cuffs. Ted, wounded, is dragged out beside her. As she passes him, she lifts the chain between her wrists, throws herself over the railing above him, and closes it around his throat with all the weight of her body. She hangs there until he is gone. Then she lets go. On the helicopter that carries her out, Peabody sits across from her with 15 minutes before the FBI arrives. He has just been told that Orloff and his warehouse are gone. He is beginning to understand what he could not accept in the streets of Washington. Salt tells him the truth that there are no more like her, but many more like Ted. And when he tells her that no one would believe her even if he did, she looks down at the cuffs already open in her lap. He punches her once for the cameras. Then he unlocks the door. As they cross the water, she promises him she will destroy every last one of them. Then she slams the door open and drops into the ocean below. She swims to shore. She vanishes into the trees. News reports across the country confirm the death of the woman once known as Natasha Chenkov, once known as Evelyn Salt, and the destruction of the network she is now walking back into the world to hunt. On the other side of the ocean, the newly sworn-in President Stevens lays flowers on Russian soil at the site of the plane crash that once took his family from him. Some names are given by parents, some are given by handlers, and some, in the end, are chosen by the woman who lives long enough to decide who she was really going to be.